Okay, this is the video lesson for Algebra 1, 11.4, adding and subtracting rational expressions. So in this lesson, we'll be adding and subtracting rational expressions. So what we're doing here is basically adding fractions, but instead of numbers, we're having variables involved too, right? And polynomials. So if we just remember how to add fractions, right? Like 1/4 plus 1/24. In order to add these, we have to have the same denominator. So you want to look for the least common denominator. In this case, it would be 24, right? So you'd have to multiply this by 6 and this by 6 to make the bottoms the same, right? The same denominators. This would be 6 over 24 plus 1 over 24. And then you could add the tops, and then they have the same bottom. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to have to find least common denominators with... Oh, that one erased. Weird. With variables and polynomials. Okay, so let's look here, and we can see here that they have the same denominator. So that makes it easy for us. We can just leave the denominator and add the tops or the numerators. That's 11 over 3y. And then for b, again, we have the same denominator, which means we can add them. So we're starting off nice and easy here. The denominator is x minus 2, and the top is going to be, or numerator, 3x plus x, which is 4x over x minus 2. Nothing cancels. That's my answer. So we're starting off nice and easy. Try this one on your own, and then check back for the solution. Okay. 5a over 3a minus 4, since they both had the same denominator. So that's adding. Subtracting, basically do the same thing. Here, the denominator is the same. 9 minus 4 equals 5 over n minus 3. Okay, and then here, we're starting to get a little trickier, right? They still have the same denominator. 3x squared minus x minus 2. And then the top would be 7x plus 5, but then minus the whole numerator here, which means you have to distribute your negative. So just be careful there. That's where it gets a little tricky. 7x plus 5 minus 4x, but then also minus negative 3, which is plus 3. Okay, and then 3x squared minus x minus 2. And then you want to simplify this. The top simplifies to 3x plus 8, and then the bottom may be able to be factored. So let's try it. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and then you have to add to negative 1. Yeah, this is going to be negative 3 and 2. So we change our 3x squared to, and then a minus 3x plus 2x minus 2. These two both have a 3x. These two both have a 2. Minus 1, yep. So this factors to 3x plus 2 times x minus 1. Okay, and I can see here I made a mistake. Maybe you noticed it too, right? This was a plus here. So this is a plus here, which means this becomes a minus here. And so 5 minus 3 is going to be plus 2. Okay, this is why I knew that was a mistake. Right, because look, this factor is going to cancel with this factor. So this simplifies to 1 over x minus 1. So that's why it's important to factor, if this factors, to factor it. So in case some terms cancel or factors cancel. So the solution here is 1 divided by x minus 1. Okay, so be careful when you're subtracting. And make sure you copy it right. Okay, try these next 3 on your own. Press pause and then check back for the solution. I'll leave it here for you to press pause. Okay. So this one was nice and simple. 2 minus 7 was negative 5 on top. They both have z plus 3 on the bottom. The second one had to be a little careful with, making sure you distribute the negative to they both have the same denominator. So minus 3n, but minus 5. Don't forget to subtract that 5 also. This simplified to 6n minus 8. And then we took out a GCF. This both had a 2. This one had 2. This one did. I took it out. So those 2's canceled, and so we're left with here. And then this one, same thing, a little trickier because you had to factor the bottom. Minus 6q plus 5. This became 1q. This became 2. And then remember, this is a difference of two squares, my a squared minus b squared. Hopefully you are there now that you can factor that fast enough rather than having to do the -4, 0, the -2, +2 stuff. But if not, you can factor it like that, right? Q squared minus 2q plus 2q minus 4, and so on, to get that. And then the q plus 2's cancel, so you're left with 1 over q minus 2. Okay, so problem 3 here. Now we're having two different denominators. And so we need the least common denominator in order to do this, right? So we need the same denominators here. So in this case, to find the least common denominator, we're finding the least common multiple of 6x and 2x squared. So basically, if you break down into factors, just like we did for the greatest common factor, where there you just you need to take what's in common, and here everything needs to be represented. So if you break this down to 2 times 3 times x, and this gets broken down to 2 times x, we need to make sure a 2 and 2 x's are represented in our least common denominator, and we need to make sure there's a 2, a 3, and an x. So for the least common denominator, if you just take one of them, so we'll change the color here, this one. We need a 2, an x, and an x. Okay, so we've used all those. Well, we already have an x here, so we don't have to repeat. We don't need a third x. So we don't need to repeat an x. We already have a 2 here. Oops. So we don't need to repeat that, but we don't have a 3. So we do need to bring the 3. So our least common denominator is going to be 6x squared. Okay, so we need to change this to have a denominator of 6x squared. In order to do that, this needs another x. And so if I'm doing an x on the bottom, I have to multiply the x by the top. So this is 5x on top. Plus, and then this is 2x squared. We need a 3 here to make that 6x squared. So this needs a 3. So this is going to be 9 over 6x squared. Okay, so now we have the same denominators, and we can add across just like we've been doing. So 5x plus 9 on top, and then 6x squared on the bottom, and nothing cancels. Okay. So press pause and try this next one in your notes. If you want to go back and press pause on the other one, that's fine. But press pause and then check back for your solution. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is find the least common denominator. Since there's a 7 and 4 y's in this one, you can start with that. And then 2 of the y's are taken, the 2 y's from this side are taken care of in this 4, so you don't need to add that. And then there's an extra 3 factor. So the LCD is 7 times 3, 21, and then 4 y's. So to get that to be your denominator, you have to multiply this one by 3, and then 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. This one needs a 7, and then 2 more y's, so do that on the top as well. And then when you multiply those, this is what you get. They both have the same denominator, so then you just add the tops, or the 2 numerators. And nothing simplifies. Okay, so adding on, we're going to look at this problem. So careful here with the least common denominator. These binomials here are their own factors. So this factor is, one of the factors is d minus 1 here. And then this factor is, this denominator just has one factor, d plus 2, and none of them repeat. So our least common denominator are these two factors multiplied together. So this denominator needs a d plus 2, and so you do that to the top. And then this bottom denominator needs a d minus 1, and then the top also gets a d minus 1. Okay, so we're going to rewrite this one. This is 3 times d plus 2. And then we're going to rewrite, and actually I'm going to just put it all under the same. I'm just going to skip a step so I don't have to write all this. Since they have the same denominator, I'm only going to write the denominator once, and under one big fraction, d plus 2 times d minus 1. Okay, then I'm going to take this one, which is here, and then I'm going to subtract 2 times d minus 1, which is this factor here. Okay, so now I just want to simplify this by distributing the 3, and then I'm going to distribute the negative 2. So this becomes 3d plus 6 minus 2d, and then minus a minus is plus 2. All right, and this is all over the d plus 2 times d minus 1. And then I can combine like terms. These two are like terms, so this becomes, oops, just D. And then these two are like terms. 6 plus 2 is 8, so this becomes D plus 8. And then D plus 8 divided by D plus 2 times D minus 1. Nothing cancels. So that is the answer. Okay, so try this next one on your own and then check back for the solution. Okay, and here's our answer here. Your LCD is just these two multiplied by each other. So this one gets a C minus 2. These both get a 3C minus 1. When you distribute that and subtract here and combine these like terms, you get negative 14C on top. And then to check if this factors, you have to have two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to negative 14, which is impossible. So that doesn't factor. So this is your simplified form. If it did factor and one of these canceled, then you'd have to cancel it, but it doesn't work that way for this one. Okay, time to practice. Enjoy.